I think this is just an awesome flip. Came out great. So Kayla, I will let you introduce yourself, what you do.
I wasn't part of it.
Yeah.
I'm Kayla. I'm born and raised in Tampa. I've been a realtor since 2016. This is technically my first 100% flip. The one that I did before this was more of like an Airbnb that I rented out, did some light work, and then sold it. So this is my first true flip. Let's see, it was just me, no partners, one contractor, and we knocked it out in about 30 days.
Awesome.
So I purchased it for $187. The assignment fee on it was about $22,000. That goes to the wholesaler. My list price right now is $324, and projected costs around $53,000 for a profit.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So a couple things to notice, and we talked about this in the last meeting with the group. So the metrics to buy what I think is a good deal, and everybody has their own metrics, right? But we talked a little bit about the assignment fee being $22,000, and you're like, that kind of hurts, right? I'd rather it be lower. But really, what you want to think about is not what the other party's getting, it's what you're getting, right? You want to think about, is this a deal for me? Does the deal make sense for me? And I think this is a pretty awesome deal. So if you look on the buyer marketing sheet, the purchase price is 57% of the projected ARV. So, maybe the metric is under 60%, or maybe it's 55%, like what Keely and I are doing. But, for her, it's, hey, that's a quick way to do a gut check. Hey, is this a deal? Like, am I buying it good, right? So if she's working with a wholesaler, she doesn't want to pay too much, right, to the wholesaler, but it's more about, hey, is this a good deal for me? So I think, that's another, quick way to reference, hey, am I in the realm of a good deal?
I found the hard money lender through someone in this group. Can we use names? Do you guys care? I used Jared. He actually offered this house for me. That's how I found the home. So it was hard money, about 15% down, 12% interest rate. I think he charged me a couple thousand in fees as well.
So if you guys go to the short-term lender funding request, it just has the specifics. This is usually what we would do in advance. So this is out of the Rehab Evaluator software. We would do this in advance to send to the lender, like, hey, this is what we want for this deal. But we just went ahead and kind of put, retrospectively, the numbers. So you want to walk us through the funding sheet?
The what sheet?
The second one, short-term lender funding sheet.
Okay, so like I said, I'm trying to list the home for $324. I purchased it as $187. That did include the assignment fee. Rehab costs about $48,000. When I originally projected this home, I gave myself a gap between $40,000 and $50,000 budget. $48,500 includes staging, the marketing, like everything all wrapped up in a bow. Appraisal, inspection, like everything. So closing and holding costs around $12K. And then points offered 2% and interest rate around 12%.
Yeah, so I think this is pretty fair. Like, if you think about hard money lenders, they're all like within the realm, right? 1% to 2%, right? 11% to 12%, right? Just depending on your experience. So this is pretty common, I think, for this is your first flip,
My
actual
first
flip,
one,
right?
yeah.
So actually, this is really, really good financing terms for a first flip. Sometimes you'll see them add a little bit more because they're trying to compensate for risk, right? So they're a little bit higher on the interest rate, a little bit higher on the points. But it sounds like she has a good relationship with the lender. So I think 12% rate, 2% upfront costs, really, really solid.
Yeah, but now that I know, next time I'm asking for for even lower,
sure.
for even lower percentage.
Now you can, right?
Yeah, now I can.
Exactly. So something else is interesting too is you can see the total funds that were needed are 65% of the ARV. So lenders are going to lend up to 70 or 75%, right? So realistically, if Kayla needed to, she could add a little bit more into the budget and have some money in her pocket if she were to front load it to pay for things like interest carrying costs, right? So she has a little bit of breathing room. But 65%, that's a quick way to get approved, right? If you're early in your flipping career, right, and you want to eliminate some of the risk for the lenders, you buy good deals. She's putting down a 15% down payment, which is pretty common, either 15 or 10% loan to cost, so on the purchase price. Mm-hmm. So I think 65% total funds needed is a
So where are you where are we on the timeline right now? So when did you close on it? And then like, are we in month 3 now, or are we in month 2, or?
No, so I closed on this home July 2nd, I want to say. They started on July 4th. They took about 30 days, June, July, August. They ended mid-August or in September, so like 3 months, the third month. All right, that makes sense.
All right, so tell us a little bit about how you acquired the property.
So I kind of kept poking him, and I was like, do you have any good ones? Do you have anything left? So he actually sent me a full deal sheet breakdown of this home and was like, hey, it's technically, off market. I haven't sent it out to anyone. Here's a phone number if you want to go see it. And so I basically found this through a cash lender and then a wholesaler.
So the wholesaler brought it to his attention?
Correct.
And he brought it to yours?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that Provost or which Jared?
Yeah.
Prevost or Provost, yeah. Is it Provost or is it Prevost?
I say Provost.
But you did talk to several lenders, huh?
Yes, I did.
I think it's pretty cool that the lender brought you a deal, right?
Yeah.
So, and at least we don't feel bad that we didn't do the deal with John Robart, who's a great member of the group,
Yeah.
because the lender brought you the deal, right? So I think
Yes.
it's
Sorry, man.
Next time.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not like a conventional, like, resource. Like, you wouldn't think of
Yeah.
going to your
Yeah.
hard money lender and asking, did they know of any deals?
No, I was
Yeah.
just being persistent.
yeah, it definitely brings a lot of value as a lender, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
direction.
He has
And bringing you decent deals too. It's not like this is a crappy deal,
Yeah.
right? So-
He has a monthly deal drop that he sends out to
Yep.
all of his borrowers, like there's deals in Hillsborough and Ellis Pasco.
Yeah.
I thought that was super
Smart.
cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic,
Smart.
yeah,
Very
it's
smart.
really smart. All right, so this is the question I want to get to because
Okay.
this is what I'm most impressed with, how
Okay.
you just zoomed through this property, you just hit the ground running. I remember when you said you were making the offer, and then it was like within a couple weeks, you had somebody and you had a plan. So tell us a little bit about the project management process.
I don't know where to start here. No, I'm just kidding. So before I closed on the home, I was already walking the property with at least 5 different contractors, interviewed them, showed them what I wanted. So that way, by the time I closed, like they already knew when I was closing and like scheduled with the design. So my advice for anyone really would be like know who your go-to contractor is, like make those connections, and then be super detailed and like plan ahead of time, like as much as possible in your design and your timeline and your budget, like as much as possible.
So you've interviewed 5 different general contractors because you wanted them to do the whole project front to end. You didn't want to manage the subcontractors yourself, right?
Yeah. So I actually interviewed some subcontractors, and I just realized that they were, someone's walking in right now, just letting you know. I realized that some subcontractors were pretty disorganized. I would send them my scope, what I wanted, and it would take them weeks or days to get back to me, or they would just give me a random number. So I did have the opportunity to go through the subcontractors, but I just realized it was like more stress than what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I did, I interviewed 3 different contractors. The first one gave me a quote over the phone, like didn't even look at the property for $80,000. I was like, no. The second person, I had actually built rapport with them, and I thought, I was definitely going to use them, and they still overpriced me, I think because the home is so small and because it's in St. Pete. And then the third people, it was a husband and wife duo, and they were just like so genuine and kind and like easy to work with, and so those are the people that I ended up using for the project.
So we had 5 potential contractors. Some of those were subs, right?
Yep.
So specific trades.
Yep.
But so a handful, let's say 3 or 4 really general contractors.
Yep.
You met them all here on site.
Yep.
Like was this within the same week, on the same day? How did you plan that?
No. So I definitely didn't call them all in on the same day. I would say I like sporadically within a few days of each other. So I secured the home under contract. I think it was in escrow for 7 days, and within those 7 days, maybe like every other day, I would meet with a contractor and walk them through the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, go ahead, please.
Did you have a cancellation period? Like, did you have an inspection and cancellation period?
Yes. So the 7 days, like the
So
was
you
the
were trying to
cancellation
see,
period.
like, am I going to be able to do this in budget?
Yes.
While you were in the inspection period?
Yes.
Super
Okay.
smart.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
So we settled on a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about how you structured it with the contractor. Was it, hey, okay, here's a given price and I'll pay you 3 draw payments, or pay as work is completed? How did that work?
So I walked them through the property. I told them everything that I wanted, so they saw it visually. But then I also sent them an email with a written down list of like everything that I wanted done, because contractors aren't most organized. And then I also gave them some prices of where I wanted to stay in. And at the end of the day, they did end up calling me and were like, what number do you, like, we have a number in mind, what number do you want to stay in mind? And so they stayed underneath my number for me.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we started the project, and from the time that you started, let's call it demo as the start date, right?
Okay.
So from demo to completion of the project, how long did that take?
It was about 30 days. I think the longest thing that really drew me back was the window that's still on back order.
Okay.
If I had to do it all over again, I would order all of the items that I needed like up front, because I think that's definitely what kind of dragged out the process, was just like all the delaying of items coming in, shipments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that brings another really good question. So did you, for the materials, so you have the contractors ready to go, finished very quickly. So the materials, did you order them and just have them sent to the home, sent to the contractor? Did they order them? How did that work?
Yeah. So the contractors, any sort of contracting materials like drywall, paint, that sort of thing, they got. Anything that I could have ordered on Amazon or like Wayfair, I personally got. So the vanity, some light fixtures, the faucet, I personally bought on Amazon, and they let me do that so I could keep the price down too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the price that the contractor gave you, did that include the materials, or that's in addition to their bottom or their
Yeah, so the
contract
price that the contractors gave me was like everything, their construction materials.
Okay.
It didn't include like my Amazon items.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, so you picked all the pretty finishes you bought
Yes.
yourself,
The fans,
and all the
yes.
construction stuff they bought themselves,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and install was a part of it all.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Any questions? So this is record timing, 30 days. Naturally, it's a smaller home, so that makes it easier. But still, I mean, it was a full cosmetic rehab on the home, so 30 days is pretty great.
Yeah. I've been told for every $1,000 you want to like predict at least one day. So like a $30,000 project, at least 30 days.
What all did the project include?
Yeah, the project mostly was cosmetic, paint, flooring. All the 4-point items was already done except the water heater. I did have a new tankless water heater put in. But other than that, everything was mostly cosmetic, like a brand new kitchen, the tiling in the bathroom, vanity, mirrors, the fixtures, the door handles, cosmetic items.
So I think I did the math. If you do, it's about 50,000 is what you spend, and then 750 square feet roughly. It's like 60 some odd dollars. Anybody have that math? I think it's 60 some odd dollars a square foot. Anybody else ideas on what you're seeing as price per square foot for different levels of rehabs? Like Dave, I know you're doing a lot of deals, especially here in St. Pete, so that might be helpful for this deal too. But just an idea of like cost per square foot. What should we be thinking about? So we're at 60 some odd dollars on this one, but that's because the scale, it's a little smaller. But this is a moderate, full cosmetic rehab, right? So.
Did you redo all the electrical? Or no, that was already?
No, the electrical was,
So you didn't touch electrical, you didn't touch plumbing stuff? Okay. Did you touch the roof?
the roof was already new.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's maybe a tad bit high then.
Okay.
If you're not touching the majors.
Okay.
But then you also got it done in 30 days.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you've paid to expedite it,
Yeah.
which I would pay all day long premium.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know I can get it done in 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to 3 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So you almost save yourself, I don't know how much in interest expense, right, for those 2 months.
Exactly right.
That's something to kind of build back in.
Yeah.
Yep.
That probably lowers your price per square foot if you build that back in. Because typically, I would say, this would probably take someone, on average, maybe like 2.5 months,
Okay.
right? But you found probably a really good GC, seems like.
Yeah.
That got it done quick.
Yep.
So that's just how I would think about it.
Yeah, I think one thing too, like
Oh, and you did I'm sorry, you did the windows.
I did do the windows.
Okay, all right, so actually, all of them, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Price
that
is pretty good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's actually pretty
Yeah.
good. I didn't
Uh-huh.
know you did all windows.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one, right?
Yeah, that's a big one.
I think one other thing to think about, like when you guys are thinking about your timing of coming on the market, if you're starting a flip around the time like July,
Mhm.
right? It does work to your benefit to pay a little bit more to expedite it because you want to be on the market before the holidays slow down. I mean, the market in general right now is just slow, unfortunately. But typically the real estate market is naturally gonna slow down kind of right before Thanksgiving, like between Halloween and Thanksgiving. So if I'm starting a project in July, I'm really sweating like, man, we're gonna come on at the exact wrong time, right? So I think on something like this where it's just cosmetic and you can pay a little more to get in and out, super smart in terms of like getting on well in advance of that slowdown.
Yeah.
And it looks really clean. Like,
Yeah.
good work.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You did a good job.
Like,
Thank you.
Let me have that number.
Yeah,
exactly.
You can't have it because they won't be available for her.
Oh, I'm sorry, that.
We already asked and she said no.
I did. You did also include some landscaping, looks like. A
Uh-huh.
little bit.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, landscaping, and there was some drywall framing.
Okay, okay,
Mhm.
so that's actually a good deal.
So what would you use as benchmarks? I think I've seen you post this on your content.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about light cosmetic, moderate to full gut flips, what are the benchmarks that you're using as cost per square foot for those rehabs?
Yeah, it ranges obviously, as you guys know, but typically if I'm just doing pure cosmetic, like $45 a square foot, if I'm going in and doing cosmetic plus like some of the majors, right? So maybe redoing some windows, maybe redoing some electrical, maybe some plumbing. It kind of ranges in that kind of $65 a square foot.
Okay.
And if I'm going down and like doing a full gut all the way down to the studs, that can go anywhere from 80 to whatever 120.
Yeah.
Depends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you're doing, subfloor, framing, foundation, all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one was right in line, right? I think you're right there
Yeah.
on the pricing.
Yeah.
And I think most importantly, I agree, I would absolutely pay, and we do pay a premium to have quick project management, right? Because that gives you the opportunity to make money in other areas, right? You're a
Yeah.
realtor as well, you have other income streams. So I think, that speed, right, there's a lot of value to be had in the speed.
You know what the wholesaler made, you had some hiccups in the lending situation, so like what were your takeaways just kind of regarding like your money, protecting your money and kind of how to minimize like output of money to other
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think in the future, I'm definitely going to interview more than one or two cash lenders, if I'm being honest, and just kind of like beat the rate. I think a lot of the numbers were just kind of thrown at me, and numbers for me like is the hardest, and that's probably the most important piece of all of this. But like looking at a closing sheet, like how often do people close on houses? How often are people actually looking at closing sheets? So, yeah, in the future, I don't know. I'm gonna bring a second attorney with me. So when I closed, just so everyone knows, when I closed with an attorney, and I was looking at these closing docs, and I looked at the attorney. I'm like, these are wrong. He just like stared at me. I'm like, I'm not. They had me getting $50,000 back, and I was like, I'm not supposed to get money back at the table. I'm supposed to be giving you guys money. And he just like stared at me. I'm like, I'll sign it if you really want. He's like, yeah, just sign it. And so I signed it, which next time I won't be doing that. And then I got off the phone and I called Jared, and he was also confused. He was like, no, you're fine. I'm like, okay, guys. So the next day in the morning, they were like, yeah, you have to go back in and sign all new paperwork. I'm like, I told you guys. So yeah, next time I think I'm just gonna be super extra firm. I'll probably bring in my own numbers, my own sheet, and be like, this is what I was given. And yeah,
Eventually
shop around.
It sounds like what they did is your construction reserve holdback. They didn't
Yes.
have it as a holdback.
Yes.
And they had it as a credit.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
So I would say, as it relates to the financing, so you felt like it was a little heavy on the charges and stuff, right?
Yeah, I felt like the charges were a little heavy, but again, it was my first
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
and so
I honestly think your terms are pretty in line, especially for an early stage
Yeah.
rehabber. When I'm thinking about my lender is, I don't want to have to submit all of my statements. Well, you have to, of course, always submit updated bank statements. But I don't want to give them all of my information every single time, right? I don't want them pulling my credit on every single deal.
Yeah.
And I want them to be very quick, right? Because I can't afford to lose a deal or lose escrow if they say, yeah, I can close in 2 weeks, but they're so institutional
Yeah.
that it's more like 3 weeks to a month, and then I lose out, right? So
Yeah.
I would say, if this lender was easy to work with, like
Yeah.
from those little angles, like, hey, I think the terms are great. So that's
Yeah.
something you want to consider. Like, you're going to shop around and all the terms are going to be very similar, within a half point here or there.
Yeah.
But if the lender's easy to work with, if they're going to be a partner to you,
Yeah.
I'd probably rather pay them a little bit more.
Yeah.
I see a lot of flippers get caught up on the interest rate, like the annual interest rate. So if you really think about your deal, maybe 10% is the best terms offered in the market, and 12% is like newer flippers, but 2% difference. But like this deal, you're only going to be in for 3 months.
Hopefully.
So you're actually not paying 2% difference. You're probably paying
Yeah.
like a third of a percent
Yeah.
on that carrying time, right? So that too,
That's
right?
true.
So I would say consider, if you think the lender was good and
Yeah.
easy to work with, maybe
Yeah.
you just push a little, hey, give me a better deal.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Yeah.
I do think it's important, like, to shop around until you find one that's like super streamlined, where you can just trust that, like, you're gonna show up to closing, your documents are gonna be on point, and
Yeah.
that's very stressful to have like something
Yeah.
that door should be closed and it keeps like reopening and there's new issues. So
Yeah, that mistake probably left a bad taste in your mouth too. Like, oh wait, I
Yeah.
signed legal documents and
Yeah.
you should have your stuff together, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Nice guy, but if I'm paying an attorney, like, if I'm paying you to do something correctly, then you should do it
Right.
correctly.
Yeah. All right, so here's another, anybody have any other questions as it relates to project management, lender? Cool.
How often were you on site?
It kind of came in phases. I'd say maybe like at the beginning, once every 3 weeks, and then like towards the end, towards the finishing, maybe like once a week.
Right.
And they would call me and ask me questions and like, hey, can you come in? Can you look at this? So I mean, at the max, like once a week.
So like 4 times basically you're on site.
Yeah, four or five times.
4 times.
Yeah.
I'd say 50 grand for 7 hours worth of work is pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
What are the challenges that you faced on this project, or challenges that you think investors should consider? So think of an early stage investor when they're taking on their first flip, or maybe it's their second or third flip.
Yeah. Yeah. Some challenges that I faced, I would say definitely all the items that I had to order. Things were delayed, things came in broken, and all of that was out of my control. So I would say definitely order all the items, like, heads up first.
Okay.
Predicting the budget. I mean, I looked at my budget 2, 3, 4 times, and I really tried to like nail down the items. And even then, like, I still think that's the hardest part. Like, I still came in like, a couple $100 from 50,000 when I really, like, my target was 40,000. So I'd say that was definitely the hardest part as well. So if you can get your numbers like exact, and I don't know, find a wholesaler that's like wholesaling out floors or something. I do work for a construction company, a very large national company, and I've seen what they pay for items, and I have a spreadsheet and breakdown, and so that kind of helped me. But for example, comparison with the appliances, I ordered all the appliances, but I also shopped around. So I looked at Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon. These actually came through Civvy.com. If you ever want to see anything GE, Civvy's really good. And so that's kind of how I shopped around prices. I just checked 3 or 4 sources online and then picked the best prices.
Sounds like you're good with numbers.
I'm actually really not. Did you hear me up here? I'm like 187-ish.
All right, last question, because you're in the hot seat. What advice would you give to an investor interested in going into a project like this one?
Some advice I would give new investors: definitely have great vendors, people, a team around you where you can ask just as many questions as you want. Keely and Mark have been great. Every Friday, you can ask them. Every Friday, I'm like, who should I use? Where should I do? What do I do with these windows? Like, just ask as many questions as you can, and then collect that info, and then just kind of go for it and like learn along the way.
You notice how she said Keely's name first, right? Just kidding. All right, well, this is an awesome project. It came out amazing. It was cool to kind of see it unfold at every step.
Yeah.
So we're excited for you. I think this thing is going to sell any day now, especially with rates dropping. So
Yeah.
let's do a little round of applause for Kayla on her first flip.